Let's kick things off with Jake Nickell. Put your hands up if you know Threadless. I don't even need to introduce this guy. Jake Nickell is the founder of Threadless, and he's really revolutionised the way designers get their work out. And he's also made T-shirts a whole lot more interesting. So thank you for that, Jake. And we're looking forward to hearing from you tonight. Welcome, Jake Nickell.
Okay, my name's Jake Nickell, and my talk tonight is called Never Stop Making. But first, some background, a little bit about Threadless. I started Threadless now almost 12 years ago as a hobby. It wasn't really even meant to be a business. I was going to art school at the time, and I just wanted to make cool things together with my friends. This was where I started Threadless. This is the corner of my 350 square feet, which would be like 100 square meters, maybe, apartment. I put my computer here in front of the front door so that I would never leave. I would just be working on my project. And then here's our first logo. It was very basic, just a few pixels. This is our first website. It was incredibly ugly. I can't even believe that existed at one point. But it got the job done. 12 years later, like, making cool things together with my friends is still what we do today, and it's a lot bigger. The group of friends is a lot bigger. We've had almost 2.5 million people now sign up and join the fun, with hundreds of thousands of artists. Over 200,000 artists have submitted designs to Threadless. And from the day I started it 12 years ago till today, like, the reason we exist has remained the same, and that's to be a place for artists and designers who make things in their spare time to have a productive way to, like, show and benefit from those things that they make. And so we provide opportunities to the artists for their artwork. We make products from their art, and we distribute them around the world, and we pay the artists for their work handsomely. But now, like, moving away from what Threadless is about, there's this theme through my presentation with the word make, and it's just a bunch of totally random ideas that have kind of popped in my head over the years of doing this. And to start off, there's this thing called, like, the universal human need to make, which I really believe in. There's this guy, Jeff Howe, who coined the term crowdsourcing, and he wrote a piece for our book once about how he followed the Vans Warped Tour around, which is like a festival in the States, and he witnessed all these creative kids who were making things along the way on the tour, whether it's poetry or tattoos or video or animations, whatever it was. And they were doing it not for any money. They weren't making any money from doing it. They weren't even doing it to become poets. Like, it wasn't even a career thing, you know. They were just doing it because they loved to, and it's what they were doing it because, and what Jeff quotes is, making stuff is the most joyful occupation in which we ever engage. It's the closest we come to God. And I'm not even like a religious guy, so it's kind of weird that this quote struck me so much, because I do feel like when I'm really in the zone, like working on something and then focusing, that it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of a revelation, I guess. And it could even be that I'm just making a stack of barbecue grilled cheese sandwiches for my friends. Another thing is learning how to make by making. I was talking to some of the other panelists earlier, and this is something that I think is really important. I'm pretty self-taught with most of the things that I've done. I kind of feel like if you go into something having learned how it's already done, you're just going to do it the same way it's already been done, and you're not going to really bring anything new. And if you just force yourself to learn how to do something, you'll oftentimes learn it in a new way, maybe that hasn't been done before, and that's how maybe you'll bring some innovation into what you're doing, you know? I mean, I was thinking back some examples of this. I think the first thing that I learned how to do by doing it was building a tree fort by just grabbing a hammer and nails and, like, pounding a nail into the tree. And I wasn't a carpenter, but I just kept adding boards to it and ended up having like a 3-story tall tree fort in the middle of the woods. Or making my first mixtape, you know, like, I didn't know how to do that. I just, like, put the tape into my recorder and figured out how to do it. But most of the things I've done in my career I've learned how to do by doing it. Like, Photoshop, I opened up the program, opened up every single palette in there, and clicked every single button in the program. And this is the best way to learn any program on your computer. I promise you your computer won't explode if you do this. Open it up and just click every button. I learned how to code websites by clicking View Source in the web browser, and it shows you the code behind the website. And if you start reading it, it starts to make sense, and you start to learn how to do it. Another thing, make yourself uncomfortable. I am not much for public speaking, but I do it regularly because I think it's a good thing for me to try to overcome. But this is also like when you make yourself uncomfortable, as long as you have the confidence to actually try doing what you don't yet know how to do, it's kind of when you're the most creative and innovative. I think a lot of times innovation comes from amateurs, people who don't know how to do it because they do it in a new way. If you do something that you're an expert at, what more do you have to offer than what you've already mastered? You know, step outside your comfort zone. You know, approach a situation with completely fresh eyes, offer a new perspective, even if it's not that you learn something, maybe the person that you're working on it with will learn something from it. I mean, a good example of this is when I started Threadless for the first time, I entered a t-shirt design into a design competition for an event that was taking place in London. This is my design that I entered in, and it somehow won. And I started Threadless 1 hour after winning that challenge by simply starting a thread on that forum saying that if you post your designs into my thread, I'll print the best ones and we can all have them. And I had no idea how to print t-shirts. I didn't know how to charge credit card numbers on the internet. Didn't know how to ship stuff at scale. Like, I was just, you know, an art student saying, hey, yeah, I'll make these designs into things that we can all have. And I got like 100 designs posted into the thread in that first version, found out how to print them, and printed the first 5, and started shipping the orders at my local postal department, you know. And like, the way I charged credit cards in the beginning is I actually like stored them in a plain text database and then called a 1-800 number that allows you to process credit cards over the phone. I mean, I really just threw myself in the deep end and figured it out as I went. Made myself really uncomfortable. Make unintended consequences. This is about like not being able to predict what happens when you make something. It's not like, I don't think you need to go into what you're working on thinking that you need to have the next, you know, Mona Lisa figured out, or the next great novel, or the next Facebook. You know, just start working on it and figure out as you go and see how people react to it, change, and who knows, maybe it'll snowball out of control. But one thing's for sure, if you don't do it, nothing is going to happen. This is just some pictures. I mean, my hobby turned into what I've done for a living for over a decade now. Turned into this multi-million-dollar business that supports thousands of artists around the world, and that was totally unintended. That's my apartment when we were in 2002, and there is 2010, which we're not even in that warehouse anymore in 2010. We moved last year. But what's also great about this is that the best, most fun things to work on are results of the joy of creation, or your hobbies, really. I've always prioritized my hobbies. Like, when I was in high school, I learned how to code, you know, by clicking View Source. And I started working at a local internet service provider when I was about 16, building websites for local businesses. And when I was choosing where to go to college, it was like, oh, I should go into computer science and learn how to do these websites. But instead, my hobby was I was writing a lot of graffiti at the time in high school. And I decided, oh, I'm going to go to art school because that's what I'm actually interested in right now. And then while I was in art school, I started learning more on the coding side of, my hobby was more learning about databases and programming and stuff. So then I was like, oh, I'll do that now. I'm like, maybe I'm not that great of an artist myself. You can't make me is this idea that I have, like, that you should do something for yourself. You should have a creative release from your work or from your life, from your kids, or whatever it is. Have something in your life that you do and you do well and you're proud of it, and you do it simply because it's something you're craving to do with your life. I think in today's culture, it's far too easy to become like a passive viewer of the world. But it's up to you to find your legacy. When your children ask what kind of people their parents were, you don't want them to say, "Oh, he was really great at watching YouTube videos." You know? I mean, there's so much stuff that you can just consume here, but you need to have something that you add to the world. And I think today that's especially important because it's way too easy to get caught up in that. Like, step away from the TV every now and then and make something. Make with your bare hands is, I mean, I do this a lot. Like, the other day, I mean, actually, I was just in Copenhagen last week giving this similar talk, and I was home for 2 days and then flew here to Sydney. And in that time, I added 2 stories to my kids' tree fort. The other day, I went in my backyard and I just figured out how to like use mortar and brick and stuff, and I built a little fire pit in my backyard. It's the first time I ever mortared anything. It didn't turn out that great, but here it is. There's a picture. I sit around, have fires in there, roast s'mores with my wife and kids. There's the fort about, I don't know, 7 days ago, but now I added like this little room below and like another story up on the side. So I think it's really important to just get out there. And I have a job where I'm mostly on the computer with Threadless, so I like to like step away every now and then and work on something tangible. I remember, I haven't done this in a long time, but when I was in art school, I would kind of like stretch my own canvases, you know, and get my paintbrush out, or yeah, in Scouts, I remember I'd go, like, when we would go camping in Boy Scouts, I would like to not bring my tent and just build a shelter that I would, you know, camp in instead of using the tent. Yeah. Little things like that, I think it's like really important. Another one, doodle, make, try, sketch, tinker, just get it out of your head. I think a lot of us have ideas, like probably most of you guys have ideas for something you want to do, and you just haven't started it for whatever reason. And this kind of ties into a little bit like about how I was talking about getting, like, you don't have to have it figured out before you start. You don't have to have the next Facebook figured out before you start coding something, or the next Mona Lisa. But I think it's really important to just like take your pen out, grab a notebook, and write it, like draw something, or build that first prototype for it. Just simply start sketching it out a little bit so that it doesn't exist in your head anymore. And the thing that I find most helpful with doing this is it like helps get rid of the bad ideas too. Because if you do, it's like in your brain, oh, it's this excellent idea. But then as soon as you actually start on it, like start working on it, maybe after 1 hour, you're now over it. You're over that idea, and you can finally move on to the next thing. I think this might be controversial, but some of the best times to work on this is when you're at work or you're supposed to be doing something else. Like, get your brain off of that thing and like use that time where you don't want to be doing something else to put a little time into a personal project. This other thing is make and make and make till you're dizzy, which I think is like I find that if you get procrastinated or you're just not motivated to be working on something, the best thing you can do to get over that is to start making something, because it becomes fuel for making things. Like, once you get into that role, it's just like you kind of snowballs, and you like. I mean, a lot of you have probably had something that you've worked on where you can't go to bed. Like, you're just up till 3 in the morning because you're that engaged in the thing that you're working on. And I think like just once you get rolling, it's kind of hard to stop. Make something cool every day is a nice challenge that I think Ollie Moss might have started this, one of our artists in our community, but a lot of people do this in the Threadless community. They challenge themselves to make something cool every single day. And if you do decide, like, this is a great challenge just to give yourself. And if you do it, document everything you do and post it somewhere so people can see it. And even if it's just writing something every day, like challenge yourself to write something every day on your blog, or post an Instagram picture every day, whatever it is. My wife and kids try to do this, and we haven't been quite every single day, but we've been coming up with some ideas that may be too big, though. Like, we want to. There's this small town that I grew up in, Crown Point, Indiana. There's this corner of two roads that come together that there is always literally like 50 to 100 pairs of shoes on the corner just sitting on the ground. And somehow the city comes and cleans them up all the time, but somehow the shoes just keep coming and nobody knows why they're there. And so we want to build a visitor center for this place that has this made-up story for like why this is shoe corner. And that's one of our projects. But Brock Davis from our community thought his thing can, like, just make a banana, cut the banana off and put it on. He's got a notebook paper lined with thread, or this is a fatal airplane crash. These are the kind of things that you can do. Fatal paper airplane crash. It can be very simple, just something to, like, just do it, you know? Get it out of your head and make something. Make with friends. Don't forget the power of collaboration. I think, first of all, it's like a lot more fun to make things with your friends. But also, if you're, say, like an entrepreneur and you're looking for a co-founder, or you're a musician who wants to start a band, you want to find your other band members, or you're like a writer and you're looking for an illustrator to illustrate your book, whatever it is, like maybe you're really good at Excel spreadsheets, but you suck at coloring the cells properly. I don't know. I think the best way to find these kinds of people are to first make friends with people and then start making things with your friends. Like, don't go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to meet this person and we're going to start the company. That's the first thing we're ever going to do together. I think it's better to first make friends and make things with your friends. I met my co-founder by getting into these weird experimental JavaScript battles on the internet with him in this art forum. And he would send me this thing that he would make that took over the web browser and then start making it go in circles. So then I took that and like made it go in a star shape. And we just had these battles back and forth working on weird projects. And then we ended up starting Threadless together. Find opportunities for the things you make. It's incredible how empowering the internet has become for people who make things. At the very least, you can use the internet to share the things that you've made. Like, post it to one of the billion services out there that you can share. Post it to Tumblr, Twitter, Flickr, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. If you make something, let the world react to it. And then you can take it a step further with places like Etsy, Kickstarter, Foodsie, Threadless, where you can, when you make something, you can post it up and the world can maybe buy it or support you in your project with Kickstarter. These kind of things, like an intestines necklace, that somebody would make in their bedroom. I think before, 10 years ago, the only place you would find something like that is at your local craft fair, And now you can post it up on Etsy, and anybody in the world can buy it. As powerful as simply making something is, it's that much more powerful when the world gets a chance to react to it. So don't let your things just die away and under your bed or in your storage locker. To wrap this all up, a typical problem I think in all of our lives is we get locked into a routine, or we get stagnant, or get too comfortable, we get stuck in a rut. And I think making things is actually doing stuff is the best way to release yourself from that, and encourage you all to go get lost in making. Also, all these little make illustrations were made by the Threadless community, and we're going to tomorrow start carrying a line of shirts that are all like make, so I'll have to check that out. And thank you to the Threadless community for making those. That's all I got. Thanks, everybody.